The Other Side of Fear, a Backpacker's Memoir by Jenni Reavis. Unhidden Heroine Series, Book 1. Chapter 22, Bucamaranga. At the Santa Marta bus terminal, I had every intention of getting a ticket to head back to Medellin, but I heard a ticket vendor yelling another city's name. When I heard the name of the city, something inside of me went ping, ping. Bucamaranga, this little guy in a pressed t-shirt and ball cap yelled down the corridor. I stopped. Where is that? I asked him. About 9 hours southeast of here, getting closer to the border of Venezuela. He showed me on a map. It wasn't that far away from Medellin and wouldn't take me too far off my path to get south to the border. After paying $20 for my bus ticket, I followed him around the kiosks to the boarding docks, stuffed my bag onto the back of a bus, and off I went. It was only 9 a.m., so I would arrive in Bucamaranga early in the evening, although it would be dark. I hoped that the bus had Wi-Fi so that I could use my phone to look for a hostel and have a clue of where to go upon arriving. I reflected on how nervous I had been when I first arrived in Medellin, how scared I was to go on that bus trip with the singing girl and her friends, and marveled at how far I had come, just letting things unfold and flow. I secretly adored bus rides. They became a part of the life that I lived now, like the wind, free to blow anywhere I wanted, when I wanted. I had anywhere from 9 to 12 hours, or possibly longer in Colombian time, if there was a mudslide, a motorcycle accident, or a police check that held us up. Sometimes all these things could happen in one bus ride, but it never bothered me because it's all a part of the adventure. I popped my earbuds in to drown out surrounding noises. My nerves were shattered. I was exhausted on a soul level. Several hours alone with my thoughts at home would have driven me crazy. Several hours alone with my thoughts during a bus ride adventure was a welcome experience. I never took night buses, though, not only because they are more dangerous and I can't sleep on buses, but mostly because during the day I could see how nature, scenery, and architecture differed among places. With my face pressed against the bus window, waves of nausea rolled through my body in sync with the tossing and turning of the bus, driving around curves, then around traffic, before finding other curves. If I didn't fear for my life at least once on a bus ride in Colombia, I didn't feel like it was an authentic experience. I enjoyed the thrill of dangerous experiences, but as scenery rolled on by, I was left with the question in my mind, but why do I choose self-destructive ones? Sometimes drivers passed slow motorcycles, whipping around curves where they couldn't see anything that was coming around the corner, and I would see the drop off the side of the mountain through my window. I could see small rocks being thrown from the tires of the bus, bouncing to their new location in the valley below. Every time we stopped because of a landslide, I thought about how one could happen to our bus at any time, knocking us off that feeble path like a toy car, sending us tumbling down the mountain. It was scary, but mostly it sent adrenaline surging through my body. I connected my phone to Wi-Fi so that I could check out hostels in Bucaramanga. There were several with beds available, but I was looking for the specific ping ping inside me before I made my choice. Finally, after scrolling through several pages of options, I found it. It was the last one, and it had no reviews since it was a new listing. Something about its name, Hostal Chitota, resonated with me. I only booked one night there since it had no reviews. I wouldn't know if I wanted to stay there longer until I gave it a chance. I found out when I got to Bucaramanga that the hostel was about 15 minutes away from town in the country. My cranky taxi driver was not too thrilled about having to find it at night. The entrance was not easy to see until you were right in front of it. The owner watched for me to arrive so that he could unlock the heavy black iron gate. As soon as the gate latched behind me, the sight in front of my eyes drew the air from my lungs, and I gasped. The path leading to the property was lined with tiki torches, which offered a comely glow. The light flirtatiously revealed a cobblestone path that was very obviously laid by hand with so much love. The fire revealed just enough of the foliage to know it was grown intentionally around the path. I felt like the universe rolled out a red carpet intentionally for me in that very moment when I needed it the most. The owner, Don Enrique, graciously and kindly welcomed me and insisted on helping me carry in my pack. Inside his home, he showed me the bunk beds where I reserved a bed for $7 a night, and then he said, "This is what you reserved for the price you found online. However, we have no other guests. You have the whole place to yourself. We would like to offer you our honeymoon suite outside, where we believe you will be much more comfortable. My wife would like to include 3 meals a day, which you are welcome to eat with our family. The price for all of this included would be $20 a night. Would this interest you?" I only had 1 check left from OU, and I hadn't imagined spending that much per night, but it was so cheap compared to what something like that in the US would cost. I said yes. I trusted that money would come somehow from somewhere. As they showed me the rest of their property, I was awed by the magical haven they had created for guests. The honeymoon suite was a standalone cabin-like room, which included a soft, clean double bed with soft pillows and lace curtains that untied to flow around it. The walls around the cabin were a canvas tent stretched sturdily around a strong wooden frame. The door had zip-up openings, the inner one being see-through and the outer one being a solid canvas covering for me when I wanted privacy. This space was big enough for a waist-high suitcase rack, and there was also a card table with 2 chairs in the corner that had plug-ins for my electronics, laptop, and cell phone. There was full Wi-Fi coverage in the outside space as well, making it possible for me to sit in the privacy of my room to work on my laptop. The walk outside the suite was even more stunning. In between the private suite and the other vacant private suite outside was a covered area where there was a couch, a shelf with books in several different languages to accommodate travelers from all over the world, and a glass tabletop spanning two tree trunks. Behind the reading area and sleeping suites was a simple standalone wood install built by hand with beautiful local wood where there was a toilet and a sink. On the back side of the structure was an outdoor shower with a curtain where I could pull around if I desired privacy. This was absolute paradise. I could only be there a few nights since I planned to spend New Year's Eve in Jardín, closing that chapter before heading to the border of Ecuador. And there I was, just me and my private honeymoon suite, all to myself, the luxury of soft blankets on a big soft bed with fluffy pillows, and the sound of the river rushing by. This was my definition of pure bliss. The next morning, the owner's wife brought me fresh breakfast served on a platter. She made arepas that were from that specific part of Colombia, topped with fresh cheese, a side of fresh cut fruit from one of her trees, and hot coffee. I ate my breakfast in blissful solitude, gazing at the river scenery. My spirit was begging to go explore this new city, but first I needed a quiet day to myself. I explored the banks of the river and walking trails in the woods before coming back for homemade lunch with Don Enrique's wife, Stella, over which we had a lovely conversation. It was her husband's dream for years to have a hostel like this, and after saving for most of their marriage, he finally created it. The cool breeze of this natural air was enough to keep me comfortable that night while I cuddled, warm and cozy, under the soft blankets in the plush bed, nestled in my mountain of pillows. The days got warm enough to be hot, making the outside shower experience absolutely divine under the open sky, surrounded on all sides by stunning views of nature. The water was cool, but not unpleasantly cold, and since Stella and I were alone on the property during the day, I didn't bother to pull the curtain around me. I shivered and shook under the refreshing crystalline water that rippled over my voluptuous frame. I was in love with how my white skin looked in contrast to the vibrant green of the lush jungle foliage around me. I woke up cozy in my bed the next day to the peaceful sound of the Surata River flowing nearby. After breakfast, Stella drove me to downtown Bucamaranga. I wanted to set out on foot to explore everywhere my strong legs could carry me. I wandered through markets, down alleyways, and dodged traffic while crossing busy intersections into crowded neighborhoods. I smiled at strangers and had traditional local food from a hole-in-the-wall restaurant where I tried new food. While traipsing around downtown people watching, I saw a guy sitting on a curb tying his shoes who had 2 motorcycle helmets hanging on his left arm. 2 helmets indicated to me that he was either a moto taxi driver or he was holding his girlfriend's helmet who was somewhere shopping or using the bathroom. "Hey," I hollered, and he looked up at me as I approached. "Do you have a moto taxi?" I asked him in Spanish. "Yeah, where do you want to go?" "On a 2 to 3 hour ride to see stuff around here before the sun goes down and then back to my hostel when we're finished." He studied me, trying to figure out what he could get away with charging. $30, he said. "Huh, $10. I lowballed him. He scoffed. 25. $20, final offer, I said. That was still good money for 2 or 3 hours of his time in Colombian currency, and other moto taxi guys were starting to come up to me with better offers. He knew he was about to lose me. Deal, he said, and handed me my helmet. From the back of the motorcycle, I was surrounded by a new world all around with no barrier between it. I was surrounded by a new world all around with no barrier in between us. Oh, the air. It smelled different everywhere I went, even towns 3 hours apart in the same region. I wanted to just be engulfed in that air. The air and I had so much in common. I wished I could be naked on that motorcycle so that I could intimately embody the whole physical experience. Being on a motorcycle was as close as I could get to being on a magic carpet ride. Colombian traffic is nuts, especially in big cities. On a motorcycle surrounded by countless other motorcycles and big work trucks, everyone fighting for the right of their right of way. It was exhilarating every time and I loved it. People around me were so close we could reach out and grab each other. We swooped between cars and wove in and out around trucks. He took me to the famous bicentennial bridge of Bucamaranga that was in a movie. He took me to famous churches all around the hub of downtown. We motored through the outskirts of town where there were several huge shoe factories. He taught me that Bucaramanga is the capital of shoe production, not only for Colombia, but also neighboring countries in South America. Shoe production is a staple of the economy, which explains why I saw so many shoe outlets lining the streets around downtown. From the outskirts of town, he drove me to a neighboring village called Girón, whose population was around 200,000 people. It was only about 15 minutes away, making it a popular place for locals to spend their days off when they wanted to escape the chaos of the big city. It's an enchanting village, and I wandered around for about 20 minutes, soaking in the architecture of the colonial buildings and the beauty of the church in the main plaza. We sat down in the shade, soaking in the scenery, when I saw a local farmer pushing a fruit cart piled high with fresh mango and papaya. "Do you want some fruit?" I asked. "My treat." "Sure," he accepted, and the farmer cut open a papaya, filled 2 cups with slices, and then did the same with the ripe mango. We were enjoying our fruit when a little old lady walked by selling homemade coconut ice cream. Oh my God! Coconut is one of my favorites, and she made this homemade ice cream with real coconut and pure cream from her cow's milk. They were so good that I ate one scoop after another until my stomach could not fit any more in it. From there, we made our way back to the city to a lookout point near the airport. I could see the entire scope of Bucaramanga and the shadows of small towns like Girón that neighbored the city. I watched the sun go down, and just like that, I had seen a new city. My taxi driver dropped me off at my hostel just in time for a late dinner with Don Enrique and Stella, even though my tummy was still full of coconut ice cream. When I got back to my room, I thought, what a perfect ending to a perfect day. I remembered what Orr told me about saying yes to everything I possibly could, as far as trying new things and going to as many places as possible. This is how I wanted to live my adventures. This is what I deserved. But first, it was time to go back to Jardín with my head held high, face the mess I had abandoned, and close that chapter before carrying on south toward the border of Ecuador.